welcome back to another episode of Questions and Answers with Globe Immigration on our YouTube channel. Today we are diving into an important topic, which is humanitarian and compassionate applications, also called as HNC applications in Canada. We are joined by Mr. Orko Lesnick from Globe Immigration, who will help us understand the process, eligibility, and key factors that can impact an HNC application. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for the latest immigration updates, expert insights, and answers to all your Canadian immigration questions. Alright, so let's get started with our questions.
Hello everyone.
What is a humanitarian and compassionate application and who qualifies for it?
Humanitarian Compassionate application is it's a direct application for permanent residence in Canada. Only people who are physically present in Canada can file this application, as well as only family members of the principal applicant can be included in the application for permanent residence under the HNC category. There are no other specific requirements or eligibility requirements that one must meet in order to be eligible to file such an application. Of course, not everybody should, and that's where we can advise you on if it is something that is suitable for a particular situation or not. However, it's an application for permanent residence.
Okay. What factors does the Canadian government consider when assessing an HNC application?
Well, the most important part about the HNC application is to have an understanding of what the objective is. Like, how do you demonstrate the objective, which would lead the officer to the conclusion that you and your family should be allowed to remain in Canada as permanent residents. And really what it is you have to demonstrate hardship. That you will experience if you're not allowed to remain in Canada. And that is the most important. And how you reach that objective of demonstrating the hardship, yes, there are guidelines that officers have and they'll follow, but really it could be under so many different circumstances. It's not necessarily, there are things that are mentioned, the elements, they're called elements of the case that you can present, but it really should be tailored specifically to a person's situation or the family situation. Hardship can be demonstrated in just so many different ways. You have to be creative, you have to really understand and always keep in mind that is the objective. It should not be confused with risk factors, although they could be incorporated as well, but it really does depend. And there are cases that for people who have been living in Canada for a very, very long time that can demonstrate hardship. And there are people who arrive to Canada and don't spend a lot of time here, and their particular set of circumstances dictates that if they're not allowed to become permanent residents, they would experience significant hardship if they were to be returned back home. So it is very personal to the situation of the person that wants to apply, and we can vet your case, listen to your set of circumstances, and advise you whether you would be what the possibilities are to get approved under this category.
All right. Can someone apply for permanent residence through an HNC application if they are out of status in Canada?
Yes, they can. Yes, they can, and a lot of candidates for this type of application do find themselves to be out of status in Canada, whether they came here and just never left and happened to overstay their welcome, whether they've been living here under the filed other applications as well. There are certain scenarios where they would be precluded from filing a humanitarian application that are very, but not many, right? Most people out of status are eligible to make this application. It doesn't matter where you live in Canada. This is a federal program, right? So this is not something that particular to one province or another. So you can live in Ontario, you can reside in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, British Columbia, anywhere in Canada. You're, and if you don't have status, you are eligible in most circumstances to file this application.
That's good to know. How long does it take to process an H&C application, and what are the chances of approval?
Processing times vary, right? Now, on average, I would say, so it's a two-part, there are two parts to this type of application. So the first part is probably the most important, and that is where the government will review your case and decide whether you would be granted or not permanent residence. And if you are, if you sort of do get approved for this first stage, then that could take, on average, a year and a half. I mean, I've seen cases that are processed in 6 months and even, sooner, but this is very rare. But I'd say 1.5 to 2 years now in this climate, particularly because there's so many changes with the government and applications, processing times are becoming longer and longer. And then once, if the first stage is approved, then the second stage is basically, background checks, medical examinations, things like that. It's more of an administrative aspect of the case. And that can take also longer because depending on where you're from, how many countries you've lived in the past, how many background checks that need to be made. So that will depend, but another maybe 6 months. I mean, sometimes it can take longer. But this is just average processing times for the humanitarian applications. Chances of approval, I always say, and again, this is very, it's better to be realistic about every type of case, every application, and I always tell the clients it's usually less than 50% chance to get approved. Right? This is not an application it's not an express entry application where 2 + 2 = 4. This is something that, these are tough applications to get approved, but we've had, plenty of success stories with humanitarian applications from, for people in all backgrounds, all countries all over the world that come to Canada and needed to remain here. And there are cases that have much higher chances, but I'm just sort of on average, right? They are tough applications to get approved, but that should not, discourage you to apply, right? Again, we'll, contact Global Immigration. We will sit down with you. We will ask you all the right questions, right? This is not something that, you would come to us and, we will lead you, right? We know exactly, and we've been, preparing these types of applications for over a decade. Hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of success stories, for sure thousands, are getting these types of cases approved. So we know all the right questions to ask, and we'll get all that information from you, and based on what you tell us, we can give you a realistic expectation, and what your chances are, and whether we will take on your case or not.
Right. What kind of supporting documents should be included in an H&C application to strengthen the case?
Well, first of all, a humanitarian application should not just be submitted and then you wait for the result, because again, things happen, life changes. during the processing of the actual application. So that's something that should be ongoing. You should continuously work on your humanitarian application. You should try to improve it as much as you possibly can. And of course, that's with documents and arguments and submissions and updates to Immigration Canada as much as possible. And in terms of documents, it will depend on what your personal circumstances are and depending on the strategy that we put forward. Because there's always, when we do our cases, the humanitarian compassionate cases, we always try to find a dominant argument to support the application, which will ultimately sort of be the deciding factor, right? So it's very carefully considered what it is that we're going to focus on, and the supporting documents are always supporting what the we develop our arguments based on the history and the supporting documents, but that all comes from the strategy and how we tailor your particular application, right? So we would advise you on all of the documents that would be helpful in your situation, in your case, and what documents should not be included, because that is also just as important, right? What to include and what to not include. You don't want to start putting documents that would hurt your case, your humanitarian application. And a lot of the times people will come from different firms that have been filed. The applications have been filed and we review these cases. They want a second opinion or take over their application, and we will review them, and it's like, wow, why were these documents included? Why was this information included in your application? Because it hurts you, right? So what to include and what to include is just equally as important. And based on your particular set of circumstances, we will advise you all the way throughout the processing what is helpful and what isn't, what documents you should submit, so there's no, yes, there's general type of lists of documents that we want to include, but there's a lot more depending on where you are in your immigration journey and your set of circumstances.
Very important. Can an agency application be appealed if it gets rejected? And what are the next steps?
Well, the number one, deciding any challenge to any refusal has to depend on why a case is refused, right? Just because there's an option doesn't mean it should be exercised, right? It's no different with a refusal on the humanitarian application. And it's not an appeal, so you can't really appeal. There's no appeal process. It's called a judicial review, right? And it's done with the federal court. But you can always challenge a decision of any immigration officer. Okay, any decision can be challenged at the federal court, and a lot of the times it should be done. Sometimes, strategically, it's not the right option. So again, you bring us your case, and our team will review this and review your file, and also. People will contact us with refused humanitarian cases, and they'll provide us with a decision only, right? And should we do something about this? What's our next step? We always get the other side, right? So a decision has only one point of view, meaning that the officer's viewpoint of how they came to the conclusion of refusing your application. Well, that doesn't really help whether that not always. I mean, sometimes it does, because there are also breaches of natural justice, procedural fairness from the officer how they arrive at the decision to refuse you. But more often, and most of the times actually, it's we need to know the other side. What have you submitted? What documents you submitted, your entire application, and then we weigh it, right? We weigh what was submitted against the actual decision, make a conclusion in terms of should you be challenging this decision or not. But there are Usually when you want to challenge the decision, there's only so much time that you have to do that. So if you do find yourself that you received a negative decision on humanitarian application or any other application, as a matter of fact, contact us immediately, and we will basically take over and make all these tough decisions for you, give you the advice that you do need, and on what the next steps should be.
Thank you. Can family members be included in an agency application, or does each person need to apply separately?
Family members, for any immigration application, the rule of thumb for family members are your spouses and children under the age of 22, brothers, sisters, parents, girlfriend, boyfriend. They are not considered members of the family class or family members as it pertains to any immigration application. So anybody who is physically in Canada, and that's particularly for humanitarian cases, anybody who's physically in Canada is allowed to be included in your application. Again, if they are your spouse, common law partner, and children under the age of 22. These are the only people that are allowed to be a part of the application. They don't have to file their own. There's always a principal applicant and the accompanying dependents, which are family members physically present in Canada only. Once you get approved, you can sponsor. If you have family members overseas, you can always sponsor them, right? But you cannot include anybody who's overseas, even if they're your kids or your spouse or common law partner from overseas in Canada application. You can always sponsor them after your approval.
So last but not least, what are the common reasons why agency applications get refused, and how can applicants avoid these pitfalls?
Well, I'd say that the agency applications are discretional, right? They're very discretional. So the officers have a window of discretion. Just like in my opinion, a lot of cases, right? A decision maker can always go left and they can go right? They can say yes and they can say no. So we want to, and it's important to always, the way we prepare our cases, we understand that these people, the decision makers, they're human beings, just like anybody else, you and I, right? Just like all of us are. They have a job to do, but that window of discretion, and that's why when we prepare our cases, we try to use different angles, because yes, there's always that dominant argument that's tailored particularly to your situation that, we believe that would be the sort of the deciding factor. But we try to prepare, when we prepare a case, we try to use different angles, because you never know what will trigger that positive, feeling towards your application, right? And the positive attitude. It's important. And also, I can tell you that when we prepare these cases, we really tailor them, and we really are kind of, we don't try to confuse the officers or blow a whole bunch of smoke, right? We develop our arguments, very strategically, and try to make it, the path to a positive decision for the officer as straight as possible. But we do play on different angles to hopefully benefit the case and your application. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Rohr, for sharing your expertise. This was truly insightful, and we hope our audience has a much clearer understanding of how agency applications work. Remember to contact us to book your appointment. You can do it through our website to get started with your agency application with confidence.
Just one more thing, you have to be patient, right? These types of cases, you really have to be patient and understand that this is not a 2+2 type of case. This is not express entry where it's like, you have this many points, you're in, you don't, you're out. Very clear. There's a lot of gray area here. This is for me personally, this is one of the most interesting and stimulating cases to work on, with the team here at Global Immigration, because we all work together here, right? This is not a this is not a one-person effort. There's an entire team here that everybody contributes, and different perspectives are very, very important. And we always discuss cases with each other, and everybody has their strengths, and we play on that, right? And so contact us, and hopefully we can help you.
Thank you so much. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe, turn on the notifications so you don't miss any other new episode that we're gonna drop in the future. And if we didn't cover something or you have any other question, you can also drop it in the comments. We will do our best to answer them. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next episode.
Thank you.